G'day viewers, my name is Michael and welcome to SingleRacer. Now it's just gone past mid-March here in Australia, 2020, and unfortunately the coronavirus that's hitting the world is also getting worse in our part of the world as well. So it could affect my work situation, and if that happens, it's possible that I might not get any work at all. You know, if they shut the factory down, time will tell. But if that happens, I want to make a change to one of my playlists, specifically for any new creators or beginner creators that might not have the experience yet in how to do specific things in Assetto Corsa. And I'm not talking about just adding a car or track mod, but specific mods that will help you better create videos or have control over your videos. So for example, one of the videos I did was the free roam camera and how you can move the camera around to have total control of where to put the camera, things like that. So I'll be editing that playlist so that every video in that playlist hopefully helps creators better understand how Assetto Corsa works. Now, in this particular video, what I want to talk about is because providing you have the content manager and are running the two apps that go with it hand in hand, Soul and the shaders patch, you can have specific control of the sun. And I'm talking within a 15-minute range, put the sun exactly where you want it up to a certain point. So what I'll do is I'll give you the 5 examples of the range that you can have control of, and hopefully have a little bit better control over your recordings within Assetto Corsa. And so let's start with the settings themselves. So when you open up Content Manager, if you come here to Settings, Custom Shaders Patch, and you bring the slider down almost to the bottom, you'll see the weather effects section here. Now you of course need to make sure this is active for this to work, and the simple way to tell if anything is active is if you see these grayed out options here, they're all the ones that are not active. So anything lightened in white are active, and the grey ones are not active. So just make sure that's active, and the 2 settings you want are the 2 here. And now I can't specifically remember, but I'm almost certain they're both ticked by default, and they are what give you the control over the sun, but also controlling one of the apps within the game itself. So let me take you now to show you that setting. But just before we do, I'll untick this one and I'll leave this one ticked, and you can see the option that it has here. So if date is not set, use original sun trajectory inside or instead of the accurate one. So that's an important thing just to show you initially how this works. Okay, so we're now on the Assetto Corsa track called Spa 1966, and that's because I want to show you the initial or the most simple version before we start, and give you the 5 options of what you have control of by ticking those 2 boxes or combinations of those 2 boxes. Now I have to do this in VR just because I feel that it better shows you the overall impression of what's going on, but I know I tend to shake the VR when I talk a bit, so I'll try and be as steady as I can. So let's start it off, and now let's go. We'll move the menu over here, and if you're running the shaders patch and content manager, that's what the menu looks like all closed up. So you have those 4 options, and the one we want to access is under the first one, your apps, and is part of the shaders patch. So it's I'll highlight it here. It's the shaders patch weather. Now I've already highlighted it, And what happens is when you do, you get this app here, and this can be moved, you know, anywhere over the screen that you want. But what the basic part of this app gives you is that first, so in other words, by having the first box ticked, you have access to this first section here. But this second section, by having it ticked, you don't have any control over. And the reason is because there's the sun there, because I've chosen to set it at, I think it's 1:30 roughly, there it is, 1:36 at the moment. There's the time just here. So you can see the time. Anytime you make changes to this app, you'll see the corresponding time to get a sense of what's going on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the -45 or +45 to show you that what happens with the sun is you get the simple sun daily trajectory, gee that's hard to say, or the angle of the sun as it goes through the day on a normal typical day on any day of the year. So by clicking the -45 or +45, you have control over it. Now the important thing with having that first box ticked is when you click on day, month, year, nothing happens. And that's a deliberate thing by the software to say, if you don't want control of that, if you just want to control the actual angle on any given day, they're the controls you can access, but you can't access these. So now let's come back and show you how you have control over these features. Okay folks, so now that I've shown you just the basic principle of how the Weather Effects app from Shaders Patch works, now let's untick it to show that you get now more control over that specific app while you're racing or hot lapping or doing anything within the game. Okay, so here we are back again on this particular track for a very specific reason. Now what I've done is I've unticked that first box, so meaning the first or those two boxes are both unticked. And the reason for that is there's a very important point which you still need to understand, but by unticking that box, what that means is it's given you total control over the whole weather range. And so if we look up at the sun now, which is still 1:30, I still have that control by clicking the -45 or +45 or even the 5-minute range or the 6-hour range. But now what I have is now I can click the month, day and year. So that is what gives you the total control over the placement of the sun. As you can see here, it cycles through its range. Now, one important aspect, being from Australia, if I just try and get it right, so there we are there. So, in Australia, our summer is December. Now, I'm pretty sure that's not all around the world, given that some people have a snowy Christmas. So if we just go by month, we've got December, sorry, hang on if I missed the thing. So we've got December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and back to December, the highest point in our summer. And of course, it's just related to the summer of where you live anywhere around the world. And within that range, I can just do it day by day. So I have a more finite placing of the sun for a particular day of the year. It's just quite incredible, and based on the angle. Now, you also have control of these, which is it speeds up the cycle, meaning that the sun will just curve over like a high speed setting, and I don't want to touch them because it mucks up, it's hard to get it back, so I'll leave those alone. But as you can see here, this is control over the actual seasons coming up from winter to the very top of summer. Now, let's use that knowledge to show you the 5 options that I want to show you and how you can set it. Because the reason that I wanted to bring it here was, and I almost forgot to show you that, was because the game, or the sim, I should call it, is so incredibly accurate, and the way they've made Content Manager and Sol, which gives you better clouds, and the shaders patch, work on real time, or the real world trajectory of the sun. Gee, I have trouble saying that word. But what I mean is, option 1 is I wanted to show you how on each track you could set the sun to best show off maybe an angle of the car based on the track you're driving. But it's still real world, meaning if I now wanted to get the sun over here behind me to show off the dash of the car better, I can't, because the track orientation here just won't let me. My starting position is, this is the highest point, so I can't move the sun over there, because you can't do that in real life. So for example, in Australia, I live on the northern side, and that's what would happen in my place. The area that I live is the sun would go no further back than that, and as we go through, we're heading to our winter now, the sun would be in the northern section here. And then what I would do is, if I'd go to full winter, is I would then have the range, as I click on the 45-minute plus and minus of a true winter. And same thing, of course, in the summer. So now, based on that understanding of the track angle and its placement within the world is very accurate. Now let me show you on a better track how you can maybe still take advantage of that, and let's go through the 5 options now. Okay folks, so just before we make the logical segue to option number 3, I just wanted to give you another quick example of options 1 and 2 in relation specifically to the track orientation, because I mentioned in the track before, if we just start this off, that in Spa 66 you couldn't get the sun directly behind you simply because of the track orientation wouldn't allow that to happen in a real world situation. Whereas here I'm on the Nordschleife, the full Nordschleife, just about to do a hot lap, and I have that first box unticked, which allows me to do the month by month. So now I can swivel it throughout its range as it passes the Earth on any given day. But I can also, just as a reminder, go from month to month up to the full summer down to the full winter. But what this allows me to do on the tracks that allow it is that when I'll just pick the highest point there, the full summer, is that when I drop it down now, it will drop actually behind me like this. And what you can do on the right tracks is get that beautiful glowing sun on the wheels and tyres right from the very start, if that's what you want. Now, one of the things that you can do also is it changes the atmosphere quite dramatically. So, because naturally you're going from the full sunlight, so what I'll do is I'll just highlight the dash there where the sun is over the top, and it's a very cold, you know, like your typical house lights where you've got that very cold look. But as you drop it down, watch the atmosphere of the change of the sort of the surface and everything changes to this beautiful warmer kind of feel about it. almost like like a typical sunrise, of course, but just that warmth. You can almost feel the sun's warmth there. Plus, you get the shadows as we go. I'm just making sure I'm on the button there. So the further we go there, the more you get the shadows, which leads me on to a beautiful example of options 4 and 5. But just so you can see that on tracks where the orientation allows the sun to fall behind you, you have that option to get a beautiful there as I get ready for a hot lap, to get the sun fully on your cockpit dash for that extra added effect if you're driving a convertible type car. So now let's move on to option 3. Okay folks, so now what we'll do is we'll go to option 3, and in my opinion, by ticking this one here, so using the seasonal adjustments but leaving this one unticked, I feel you have then the most control over the app within the Assetto Corsa sim to control the placement and weather of the sun. So let me show you that in more detail. Okay, so now we're on Spa proper, the most modern version of Spa in Assetto Corsa. And this is a great way to show off option 3 by still having the first box unticked, which if we start it off, gives you, like I said, the access to all those controls. But by ticking the second box, which is the seasonal adjustments, you have total control over the actual season. So here we are parked, just about to do a hot lap under the gantry, I believe it's called, and there's the sun over there behind me. And now what I want you to do is, as I click on the months, because you won't see the sun revolving as I do this, but take a look at the trees specifically and you'll find, now what was great about this is my original video on this section was corrupted, and I realized that I didn't have the seasons button ticked because when I did it in that video it didn't work, but luckily I saw that the video was corrupted, and so I'm redoing this. But now, knowing that by going through those months and the trees don't change, I knew immediately that that second seasonal box wasn't ticked. So now it is ticked. Let's click on that, and as you go through you'll see the changes in the trees there. So we go to autumn, and as we go to winter, there's the proper and full winter setting, including the grass, just by knowing that that second box, the seasonal box, is ticked. So where this gives you a great great control over how you want to do the video is the fact that by going through this you get the low-lying sun. Now look at the grass as well, how the grass changes. So we go from summer to autumn, and you see there, and you've got the lower setting sun automatically. But as we go through winter, you have the proper winter effect, which goes right through, as you can see, the whole track. Now the control you have is, this is done by clicking that seasonal second box, but all you have to do, if you want control over the low-lying sun to get that really atmospheric presence on your car and track, but you don't want the snow, you simply untick the seasonal box, so you still have control of that month, day and year, but you don't have to worry about the winter effect changing everything to white. And that's where you now have true control over your videos. But there's an even better bit coming up, so let me cover that in options 4 and 5. Okay folks, so now let me talk about option 4, which to me is the most exciting part of all this, because options 1 to 3, as we've covered, unlock the ability to use all those controls in the weather app, as well as the seasons. But the great thing about this, which when you go back to the early days of Content Manager, almost makes this front page almost redundant now. We're used to set the weather and the time of day and everything. Now you can just set it to have it always on midday. Probably the exception to this is if you wanted control over night racing. That might be the one reason where you would still use it, because you could better set the night racing for a certain time, especially just right on or as it's getting dark. Just as the sun goes down, to have that control. So you see a little bit of the car. That's probably the only case where you might still use it. But the reason I say this is because here I am back on Spa 66. Now, I actually did this in the video. And what I did was, imagine that I'm starting the race. Now, on the original Spa 66, you can't have the sun behind you. So I would set the sun for the race, and that's the consistent angle of the sun throughout the whole hot lap that I did. But what I did was, as I was recording it, I had a crash, and I came around that corner there just a bit too fast, hit the wall, got in a big slide and ended up here. And what I thought was, well, oh great, I can just keep that, and I usually use an accident as my intro just to show that, everyone makes mistakes. But what I realized was that the accident itself really has nothing to do with how you might set the sun for the total hot lap. In fact, it could be totally different, just to show off the crash in a better light. So what I did was, I used that ability to set the sun. Now, let's see if we can do it here. Yeah, just to have a partial covering of the trees as the shadow. Now, if I just reach down to the computer, I'm just looking for the keyboard here, because I've got a small rig in front of me. And if we go now to this position here, where I can just see all this can be controlled from a replay. So you no longer have to set that first page up in a race. You can do it all from either within the game live, like setting it up using this app just before you start, how you want the sun to best show off your race or hot lap, or in the replay you can actually have control. So here, for example, where I want the shadows over me, but if you select the right angle, you still get the reflection of the sun on the car itself and on the helmet, as you can see here. So what a perfect way to set this up. Now you can do this in the replay. If you are at this point here, you set it up perfect, and then all you do is the camera, using the free roam camera or a camera showing the car at a certain angle that best suits the crash. You start off the replay, record it, and you end up here, but knowing that the sun will be in the perfect angle once you finish the crash or whatever you want to show off, in the final moment. That's the key moment that you want to show off. And that is option number 4. That's fantastic, knowing that you have control or full control over the app with all those settings at your disposal. And now let's go on, because of that, to the logical option number 5. Okay folks, so to wrap up with option number 5, which is a beautiful and final segue into why I want to change one of my playlists to cover all videos that you can have control over your sim racing editing and uploading if you want to start a new channel or you're a beginner channel, is because I'm using this both now in 2D in a replay, but I also want to use the free roam camera to also help show you that once you have this set up, you have total control over almost every part about it. So I'll just show you that it is a replay here by starting it off, and now we have the lights and everything, but just for the sake of showing you so the car doesn't take off, I'll pause it. And now what I'll do is I have this as a separate video and I'll have a link to it, but how to use the free roam camera. So you just press the F7 key, and now I'll move forward, and a tip is I found when you're doing that too quick is to hold the shift down, and it just slows it down. That side movement a bit is to hold the shift key and move your arrow keys. But here we are. So the final option, number 5, is if you want to set up separately to the race and separately to any crashes or any events you want to have to highlight where the camera is, or the sun placement, sorry, is at a different angle to the main race or hot lap. But also you now have control if you want to create your or a terrific thumbnail. Because the mistake I was using in the past was, if I can do it here, no, I have to do it the other way, is I was always making a lot of my thumbnails with the sun behind there as we go behind. So using that as the example, where the cars, the main angle of the thumbnail where you're looking at the car was always dark, and it never looked as effective or powerful. Now here it's actually a great example of the lights. If we go to even darker, where you can show off and have control about just how much darkness you want. And now all of a sudden, in this car especially, this is the BMW Bayro mod, a brilliant mod from RSS or RaceSim Studios, which uses the shaders patch lighting effects to show off the number 1 here and the 00 on the windscreen. Absolutely fantastic effect. But you could imagine if this was a thumbnail where it wasn't in the dark and you didn't have the lights, it would be too dark to show off. So now, as a thumbnail, or a way to get better thumbnails, is see the sun on the windscreen, is as I move it over there, now suddenly it shows off the correct side of the car to the point where you go, oh, that looks terrific. You would just simply hide the app, so switch it off so it's no longer on the screen, and hide everything else. And if you don't know how to do that, you come down here and you can use these 4 settings. So this is my normal race control where all the controls are on the screen, and then I just simply have one that I select with nothing on it, and I just hit the screen grab button on your keyboard and save it as a thumbnail, or just a JPEG picture. Save it to the hard drive, and there's your thumbnail, all ready for your text or whatever you want to do to it to finish off. So I hope that helped you now with the 1 to 5, and in the video, in the description underneath the video, I'll have a link to the timing of each option if you just want to go to one in particular just to refresh. But I hope this helps you, and I hope to adjust the playlist to better have all videos related to how you do the free roam camera, all things like that, in relation to if you want to be a new sim racing creator, or you want to get more advanced with something you might not know, as I'm always learning about this as well. So this is Michael signing out for SingleRacer. I'll catch you next time. See you later.